Green is when emotions become tyrants. It's when emotions are like, oh, emotion exists, intersubjective thing exists. It's the most important thing here. Wait, everything can't be the most important thing here. Okay, so accidentally it's now infinite Pokemon on whose story matters. Victimhood becomes powerful to now advocate for the stories. Here's why my emotion is so important, needs to take up this space and do all these things while holding the sort of peace, love, Aquarius, everyone matters energy. I think the emotional space is really like the fault line of the performative contradiction of green, where it's just like, it don't feel good to like people like you are telling everyone you're supposed to like people. It actually feels very crazy. We all know the gift of green, or at least as some of us know. I think the gift of green technologically is quantum. It is the like, oh, yeah, you can move up, but the upness is always this weird holographic interconnected thing. Up is itself a subjective order. Now they tried to get rid of up. You can't get rid of up. It still exists, but it does have this very interesting, oh, you can go about reaching transpersonal states by climbing an ego ladder or starting at a place in yourself where you barely have one and then pump a bunch of ritual and magic into it. And you might end up encountering the same phenomenons. Now,
Welcome to Let's Go Indigo. I'm your host, Indigo Ike, and on a good day, let me start it over. I got it backwards.
wah, 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 wah.
Welcome to Let's Go Indigo. I'm your host, Indigo Ike, and on a good wait a minute. I got it wrong again. I haven't done this
On
in a
a
while.
good day, what? What is it? No, we're keeping the
I'm your
same
host,
content.
Isaac Holtz, and on a good day, Indigo Ike.
Oh,
All right.
no, you are Indigo Ike, and on a good day for the
Yeah,
rest
I'm
of
Isaac Holtz.
society,
Yeah, there we go.
Isaac Holtz answers the phone.
Yeah, I hate when that happens.
Okay, give it an actual try. I know that I'm the kind of person who'd be like, no, leave it. That's the funny
We
bit.
might leave it. This would be a good way to intro. Welcome to Let's Go Indigo. I'm your host, Isaac Holtz, and on a good day, Indigo Ike.
Perfect.
Yeah, we did it. Welcome, Wendell.
I
This is
guess today is
Wendell
a
Britt.
good today is a good day. I'm Wendell Britt.
So I want to start. I want to
Yes.
start with what I'm going to call the amber round.
Okay.
So you're going to only be allowed to say yes or no.
Oh, I can only use yes or no.
You can only use yes or no.
Okay.
Okay. All right. First question is it unwise to disagree with your trusted AI about its advice in general, but as it pertains to you?
Is it unwise to disagree with your trusted AI? That one's tricky, just linguistically, but I think I know which one I want to say. I just got to figure out, does that translate to yes or no? Is it unwise? No.
Okay. Do only men care about romance?
No.
Okay. Have you seen turquoise in the wild?
Ugh. No. This sucks.
Okay. All right. So then, Wendell, a little more less formal. I want to go ahead. I want to ask you a softball question, and
Okay,
then I want you and I to have a looser framework to talk about magic.
great.
Okay. So that question is, what does emotional intelligence look like at every rung of development or wave of development or stage of
Oh.
development? We can do first
Oh.
tier definitely, and then
I do love that I get to be on a show where this is the softball question. I know I've got it locked in. I know how to do it. And I'm like, if I threw this at many of my very sophisticated friends, they'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about?
all right. So we step into magenta. There's early emotion, or how would you?
I
What
would
would
say emotional intelligence at Magenta is attuning your interior to uh I mean, not just towards survival, but to like the numinous. It's like the most emotionally intelligent thing you can do at Magenta is be a shaman. So the ability to use that heads up display of interacting. The joke is that babies are kind of always on LSD. And it's like, okay, well then actually emotional intelligence at Magenta is being a psychonaut, just being like, okay, if you're always on LSD, how do you now navigate this very murky reality? And I like that definition because it Magenta gets a rough rap. That's kind of what I end up talking about. And its rough rap comes from the fact that like its navigational tools are just so different from every other level and just as important, if not more so. Because like Magenta is where you start to learn how to deal with uncertainty at like a deep, deep existential level.
Yeah, dude, I'm excited for us to come back around to Magenta, and actually that would fit with Magic and where Magic typically lines up. And just individually, it's where I feel like I spent 6, 7 years at Red, exploring
Mm.
Red within the integral context, and I've just recently been really interested in Magenta. So
Perfect. That's very
yeah,
convenient for me.
yeah. All right, so does that lead us to Red? What is
That
Red?
leads us to red. Red is emotional intelligence is that which gets you more power. It feels lazy, but really there's no reason to be more emotionally intelligent, with the exception of there's a movie, Jackie Chan, Laughing Hyena. It's one of the first movies that he wrote and directed. It rules, but the thing that's really amazing about it is that in the final battle, he like has to learn all basically the five Taoist whooshing emotions and fight with those emotions to defeat this like better opponent. Like like at the end of the day, the movie mechanically said he had to learn emotional intelligence to beat this guy's ass. Like his martial arts literally were attuned to the emotional states. And I was like, bet that's red emotional intelligence. There's no reason to do it aside from that, but there are still intelligences inside of it. There are still like tactics, strategies. It's not just whatever a 2-year-old can get away with. It's like, no, no, that's the beginning of it. Like the 2-year-old realizes, oh, I can get angry, punch mom on the eye. The sophisticated 2-year-old, let's say that they reach the genius inside that world sphere, are just like, cool, create any number of emotional reactions, observe the emotional reactions inside of me, try and like block my emotions being attacked, attack other people's emotions, rise up. But there still is like a mechanic to interfacing with emotional intelligence towards power. And I do still think that avoiding shame thing.
Going now from Red into Amber. And
Yes.
what is Amber emotional
And
intelligence?
this is the one that sucks. The emotional intelligence at Amber is the emotions that the Pope likes. The emotions that the authorities have deemed are good, bad. I've run into this. I have the wrong emotional reaction to stuff. I've kind of just made everything anger because it's funny. But I will watch in certain like amber environments where people will be like, "You've said nothing incorrect. You've actually done no violence. You've violated nothing except for the unspoken rule of when this thing happens, we are sad. When this thing happens, we are happy. You seem to have seen this thing happen and you are angry. What's going on?" I'm like, "You understand, I'm very happy when I'm angry. I have the ability to take my emotions as objects, do whatever the hell I want with them." And amber emotion does seem it's still like following the script towards the grand tradition. There actually is an emotional tradition inside of different cultures that emerges at their amber stage. Um,
Orange
ugh.
intelligence.
I'm gonna be shady about orange because I'm often quite shady about green. I'm gonna be shady about orange when it comes to emotions. Hedonic treadmill. Orange is just orange has an idea that some emotions are good, some emotions are bad, or more specifically, some emotions are effective, some emotions are not.
Hmm.
And that there is sort of a telos, a goal of emotion. And when I look at like basically sociopathic capitalism, my brain is always like, what emotional loop are you running that's letting this go off? Like, do you not actually have the satisfied feeling that comes from sadness? Answer no. Do you not have the peace that comes from? No. It's like,
Hmm.
oh, it seems like you're running purely off of triumph, excitement, and those are actually both being just hardwired into like pleasure center. You're a rat with cocaine. It's not even quite emotions. It's almost like emotion. I would say orange does more flattening of emotions than amber. Like amber will have like a whole tradition of when we're at the funeral and we're doing the funeral script to the T and it's alive and it's real. It's still a script, but there is a beauty that's supposed to connect to it. But like Orange is just
because of that orange emotional intelligence. It sometimes I think the self starts to feel like, why are they on this project?
Mhm,
Why have they been doing this to themselves? And so I think the classic move is to kind of like dip and say, how do I integrate my red emotion for like that gets a lot of space at green.
mhm. I'll just do mature green, not mature, immature green specifically as
We
two
see
days ago I was in orange and now I'm starting to like fuck with green. That's a very interesting space because a lot of time that's I'd say the people who are making that move for the most part in the largest numbers in our world right now are men going to therapy. Yeah.
it.
It's just a lot of women have been like secretly holding on to green values for a really long time, and so by the time that society catches up, they're exasperated because they're like, "Well, we've been wanting this forever." Some are getting it for the first time, and that distinction is quite funny and hilarious to watch people go through. But the people who are walking through the door, if there was a door on green from the emotional intelligence line, it's exclusively men, and it's often the loudest emotion, the loudest repressed emotion, which a lot of them is existential anxiety and anger. Sometimes it should be sadness. A lot of times it should be sadness, but the loudest like somatic voice, you sit down to the therapist for the first time and you actually get them to quiet down enough and stop doing and whatever the fuck. And then it's just the loudest, smallest, screeching baby flavor, which of course then men are like, I hate this. I don't want to do it, or I will only do it in the presence of, say, other men. I do think the like emergence of men's groups and the primal what have yous and the CrossFits and all the weird shit men are doing to deal with their emotions. I think are really like intelligent responses to that because it is like, yeah, you don't want to be screaming crazy baby in front of people who don't know what that feels like. Kind of hilariously, a lot of trans masked people have been incredible allies for that because it's just like testosterone's a hell of a drug. Like it's real, and like women for the longest time were like, "Why don't you guys just figure it together?" And then trans masked people are like, "No, I'm on this shit. It's a crazy drug." Like suddenly they have an inside out view of like what is the third quadrant? Is it the third quadrant? The right side quadrant, like somatic experience of just having more of this hormone around and how does that affect the interior, like they are actually like people on the edge of that, which has been interesting. But I'm gonna be lazy about green. Green is when emotions become tyrants. It's when emotions are like, oh, emotion exists, intersubjective thing exists. It's the most important thing here. Wait, everything can't be the most important thing here. Okay, so accidentally it's now infinite Pokemon on whose story matters, victimhood becomes powerful to now advocate for the stories. Here's why my emotion is so important, needs to take up this space and do all these things while holding the sort of peace, love, Aquarius, everyone matters energy. I think the emotional space is really like the fault line of the performative contradiction of green, where it's just like it don't feel good to like people like you are telling everyone you're supposed to like people. It actually feels very crazy. And without
Yeah,
really sophisticated tools to like mediate that, green does crazy shit.
perfectly. And I don't know if everyone's prepared to step out of it.
I've made over the years, me and Ike have talked about this. I've made pretty solid karmic psychospiritual bets that people will have to, because that's all of my
People
work.
will have to. Yes, people will move. People will exit that position. Yes, and I do. I feel like everything's on track. I don't know. I feel like we can't get any kind of real teal culture until green has to have its own space. It's got to be successful,
Mm.
and then it's got to have a downfall. I mean, it's got to like start to crack, and people have to step up or step back.
Yep. I
So what
think
is
this is a crazy hot take. I think green has gone through all of those. Green is unique in the sense of it is so dissociated from the other parts that so much of its growth happens unconsciously. You've been hearing me for years talk gang shit about green, only to realize that like we used to work for, I think, the place in which green from a technological cultural like the rise and downfall of like streaming services, just like we can't actually cater to every audience. It's actually like the technology of, oh, we're gonna have a show and you're gonna empathize with another character. Oh, and if you want to empathize with another character, you gotta go watch another show. And if you want to like do this worldview, and so suddenly every worldview is getting a show. I mean, we're doing a podcast right now where we have a show podcast. Like
Yeah.
it has reached its broadness to the point that there's extra work that someone has to do in green to make sense of all of it. Like, and that in a weird way is its own. I mean, that's why Joe Rogan becomes famous, not necessarily because he was himself saying anything interesting. He was the one person to bring everyone on the show. That's why Oprah was famous, but it feels like a throwback for him to do it because it is. Oprah was doing it inside the like expanding the Walter Cronkite bubble by saying, okay, cool, I'm going to be a talk show host and I'm going to interview all these people and I'm going to be a bunch of people from different backgrounds and different spiritual traditions, da, 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 da. Then that goes away because we're like, that's weird. You know, we sort of keep our talk show host, but it's really just clip reels. It's more vaudevillian, which I'm not against. But then you start getting these podcast hosts bringing people on again, Joe Rogan being a big one, where it's suddenly like, didn't we already do this? It's like, yeah, but now this is like a distillation. I don't think it's a good distillation. I think the opportunity that was lost with Rogan is the fact that he's not teal, so he couldn't hold the hey, I'm going to translate for you, my audience, the best in of these pieces. He did it, I think, truly from that amber green, not amber, orange green space of, ooh, I can get more eyeballs, I can get more clout, and I can seem like someone who is kumbayaing, bringing all these perspectives together, but without like a center that is being held. It's our current media landscape, which is just, it takes so much energy to get coherence now. And so the coherence is being taken over by I don't have a better way to describe it. AI fed egregore subcultures that are trapping people in these micro matrices that are like, hey, here's a coherent narrative. And if you just agree to never break through this wall that we put around you, you can have your coherent narrative. You may start feeling existential dread where it's like, it seems like nothing's changing. Well, it can't change inside the penumbra. It's not for that. It is a nest for you to hold on to, maybe incubate, maybe just get preyed on by some corporation, but there's something in the ecology that's a little goofed up by the fact that to hold coherence, we kind of have to hold ourselves away from other narratives, but we also don't have a coherence in our media formats that makes that easier. And so, good job. I think your project's really cool for exactly that reason.
Yeah, well, I think we may never reach beyond like 20 viewers for I don't really care about the growth in that sense. Like it would be important to see that it's catching on or that it's evolving or that it's growing. But honestly, the fact that I get 20 viewers who actually watch and like are watching this now, and some of them don't know me, or some of them don't who know me but don't listen to integral ideas, and they're spending, this is a little longer than the typical one, but say they're spending 10 minutes on something I find interesting. I mean, it's not great entertainment, but I'm trying to like share a perspective and just contribute. And I think that's amazing compared to where we've been, especially. And to one of the things you said, I think when Green is in the throes of its worst self, I think going to bed is a good solution.
Yeah. So
So,
have you tried taking a nap? I did lose the thread. Thank you for pulling it back. A lot of Green's development has happened unconsciously. I think we are about to break through in ways in which for years I have been deeply cynical about it, not seeing anything get better because I wanted it to follow that orange, even that amber sort of hero's journey style. And I was like, nah, Green's just gonna get sick of itself. Like I've seen the like just straight up nonsense consequences of green by people with the appropriate level of emotional intelligence, the appropriate level of like power, like figure out like, ooh, this ain't it. I gotta build something else. And that's happening, I think, a lot more, but like there's no the enemy is always ourself in that narrative. There is no one where we can actually say it's someone else. And so I think that's the emotional maturity that Green needs is the calls coming from inside the house.
all right. So that's speaking about what does a teal emotional intelligence look like? At least an early teal is like, it's self-reflective, right? It's looking at its emotional makeup. It's kind of like the AI question. Is it unwise to ignore your emotions advice?
Oh,
Like
yeah. If I, okay, yeah, if we said emotions, I'd be like, absolutely no. Um,
sometimes, but
the,
sometimes you don't want to follow the emotions advice, right? I mean, sometimes it's going to throw you around.
well, okay, so this is me cheating a little bit
All right.
because we got to get really like precise on what we think about what the emotional advice was. I've been working on some crazy shit, Ike. I'm so sorry. I've been tinkering with Big Mind like I'm really not supposed to, and I've taken Big Mind and expanded it. So Big Mind is a practice of moving through the center of the self through these sheaths of ego consciousness so that you can be whole. There's not really a reason in that sort of zenny way of like, it's just kind of a thing to do. But potential wholeness, potential self-awareness, resolution of suffering, what have you. One of the voices in the big mind process is the voice of fear. So interesting, so fantastic. But as I've been doing my emotional intelligence work, I go, why is that the only emotion that shows up in big mind? I don't have access to talk to Genpo Roshi. I subscribed to his stuff and so became a voracious reader of his things. There was never really an answer, but there were a couple times where he would speak to anger, but never in a sort of coherent fashion. Meanwhile, I'm now doing language of emotions work with Carla McLaren. I'm reading the book How Emotions Are Made, and I'm cooking up my own emotional alchemy system. And I'm like, I think I have enough sophistication at doing and administrating Big Mind that I can start experimenting with talking about the emotions as voices, as separate from emotions as affect. So the voice of fear, one of the jokes I always would make, that was my own contribution, was that the voice of fear does not experience fear. When you do the big mind process and you get to fear, you are not scared when you are speaking as fear. You're just fear's job.
Yeah.
And that all of those are true for the different emotions. And so I do think there's a piece of teal is to just recognize like, hey, there is a conscious meta skill called separating I am not that, I witnessed that, I am not that, I'm radically free of that. There is something inside of teal that when you do that enough times, you're going to be in teal because suddenly you can take something as an object that you were the subject of before. I do think there are cultural egregores around emotion. There's a very specific flavor of American anger that is separate from just the generic spiritual job of anger, which is felt somatically in different people, and we would all point to it as anger, but Teal's job is to figure out, okay, I'm watching someone be angry, so I know that they have a lot of energy. I know that they're probably trying to protect something. And I've got to use my emotional energy, probably a skillful sadness, or at the very least, a skillful neutrality to hold that without getting pulled into it. So I can translate what its message is to maybe even then decide, is it one to be listened to or not? The issue is not listening to the emotion. It's just those jobs are so sophisticated to do consciously. That's the reason why we pushed it all to the culture, is that cultural scripts let us metabolize emotions so much faster. But when you actually have to start doing the work, it becomes a fucking martial art. Like literally, I work customer service still. People get so heated and I can't be bothered with them. But if I treat them like I see them, which is just like, oh, buddy, now I'm condescending to them, which is going to make them more angry. So I actually have to hold a very specific neutrality on their side, anger, as another part of me is seeing that situation, looking for, is this a situation I can resolve and then sell someone a shoe about it? Or is this someone that I need to get de escalated and get pushed out of the store? And I've got to do all of that without too much of a smile, or I may trigger the fact, like, yeah,
Hmm.
there is still an awareness piece, but it's an awareness and a moving, a strategy, a what is the point of emotion, I think becomes a really interesting question at Teal that sometimes green skips. Like green is just still because emotions are like the head honchos of intersubjectivity, emotions themselves a priori are good. And I'm like, only if you align with their job and know what their job is. Like my anger that wants to destroy could be useful, but if I destroy something in a red environment and now I'm in a revenge feud for 100 years, that might not have been a good destruction, even if that thing was worthy of destruction. I still have to destroy it in a different way because I'm having to do that destruction in an emotional context, in an emotional worldview that will precede consequences that have nothing to do with the localized truth of my anger towards this is a terrible example. I hate Heelys. I hate Heelys so much. The little children, their stupid little shoes, and then they rolling around with the little heels on the back. It's dumb. I hate it. Every time I think about it, every time I see it, I go, that sucks. And I know in my heart of hearts so much that I'm not even tempted that if I were to take a child, grab their Heelys, smash it on the ground like I want to, I'd go straight to jail. I know
Right.
this, but I also don't spend any energy repressing my hatred of Heelys. They are bad, and I will tell anyone who I talk to in the appropriate context. I will take the child and be like, "Yo, you want to go rollerblading? Do you want to just be like a rollerblade?" Like, there's infinite number of choices that I have to engage with this anger, but it's still there. Heelys are still stupid. If I could press a button, they would all be gone tomorrow. I would. I'd buy a new button and press it again.
So Magenta, magic. What is it? What lights you up about this stage? You could pertain to anything, pertain to emotion that, but
Well, as you've kind of gotten a flavor of, I don't know. I'm kind of a psycho-spiritual investigative journalist is something that I'm starting to accept in myself. It was the holes that got me interested in the same way where I was like, hey, I know there's at least five emotions. Why does this incredibly powerful spiritual practice only handle one? Led me to start doing more work in emotional intelligence via Big Mind the same way in which I was like, hey, we're doing this integral thing, and there's just a lot of hand waving about Magenta in ways in which everything else becomes really robust. Even in my own practices, just based on the robustness, I only really ever started talking about integral for people at the red level. There's just ways in which the framework itself lends that to happen. But there's also a tension that happens at high level spiritual development and a thing that Ken Wilber himself says, which is no one is smart enough to be wrong 100% of the time. And Ken Wilber hates magic. He hates it so much. He hates magical thinking, he hates magic, but is also a skilled enough Buddhist, a skilled enough pantheist, whatever his deal is, tantrika, like he does know that there are transpersonal psychic phenomena. Like I don't know if he's done entheogens or psychedelics, but like he has touched spaces at which a shaman would go, "Yeah, dog, that's magic," and he would go, "No, no, no, because I touched it up here, it is better, it is different." And as we all know, the gift of green, or at least as some of us know, I think the gift of green technologically is quantum. It is the like, oh, yeah, you can move up, but the upness is always this weird holographic interconnected thing. Up is itself a subjective order. Now they tried to get rid of up. You can't get rid of up. It still exists, but it does have this very interesting, oh, you can go about reaching transpersonal states by climbing an ego ladder or starting at a place in yourself where you barely have one and then pump a bunch of ritual and magic into it. And you might end up encountering the same phenomenons. Now, if you do this from a developmental level too low, you're not going to be able to describe it sophisticatedly. You're not going to have like linguistic awareness. There's going to be a lot of things that you're not going to be able to do with it. But as I've tried to explore inside of myself, those differences, like I've yet to be able to deal with that. And the biggest problem that I found to be interesting in going back to Magenta, not just integrating all of my parts, but just really looking at human development and being like, when do the big shifts happen? And then going even farther than that. What the fuck was that fish doing who decided to hop on land? Like, even when the scientists look at it, it's like, well, it could have been one fish because he would have needed a female fish to also have done that at the exact same time so that they could repopulate themselves. And it couldn't just been one of them, it would have had to been like millions spontaneously, morphogenically, I think is the cool way to talk about it, like all at once. And morphogenic, as far as I can tell, is just a fancy word for magic. It's just, oh, that's the magic that we don't have to feel bad about because it sounds sciencey and it's cool. I'm like, I don't know, dog. Those fish didn't get themselves together whatever the magic that Steve Jobs happened to pull the iPhone together, like all those, like even in his keynotes, he says all these technologies existed. We already had the phone and the iPod and the internet device. A magic was the gestalt that made the iPhone do the thing. It wasn't technology, we already had it. Civil rights. Gandhi stopped eating and the British Empire was like, ah, this sucks, and fell apart. No, that's nothing. But something, I mean, and this is, I'm raised Christian. I do think there is a magic of, so you're telling me a Galilean carpenter got killed so bad that the Roman Empire eventually falls? Like, what are you talking? Like, there is something about this like larger spiritual narrative of reality that Magenta is the first level to say, yes, you can interface with it. Now, it does it in, I think, childish, pre-conventional ways, like the rain dance is the example that Ken always gives. It's like, oh, they literally believe that if they do this dance, the water will fall. And then psychologists go, yeah, but it's actually more if they do this dance, then they're in a more receptive place to be attuned to water falling and doing all this stuff. But at my crazed brain, and thank you for giving the space, crackpot extraordinaire, it feels a bit like butterfly flapping in the rainforest leading to a typhoon somewhere, but now that typhoon is localized. Like if there is a multi-worlds theory, it's like the rain dance is the one in which the chaotic elements did cohere to the degree of belief. And when we start asking questions around like, well, why humans and not Neanderthals? I'm like, yeah, humans practice magic. Humans had language. Language itself is a magic. Like there's something that's all seemingly developmentally happening around this magenta space that's like, yeah, it's the human consciously re-engaged with spirit a couple of days after it separated from it usefully up into the rest of the spiral. And that one foundational layer is the one that gets bullied the most, is also like there's still always a little bit of like an underdog in me. And so those forces all together kind of coming together made me go, okay, this seems like an interesting thing to put my consciousness hat on around for who as long as is interesting and fruitful.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, especially now at this stage for me. Uh, there's obviously a magenta interest from a green point of view. Like whenever you go to a green town, but you go to Boulder, you up around here, you go to Woodstock, you go to Hudson, Beacon. I'm sure you're in Portland, right? Or, oh,
Yes.
but there's yeah, probably more than enough of what I'm describing, which is you go to
It's
like
worse. I
the
think all of those
knickknack
towns.
bookshop, and there's a
Yeah,
special version of magic that is
that
um,
shit works for smaller towns. Portland doing it is so tedious. Like we've never quite had, with the exception of Timbuktu, Athens, London at certain periods, even like kind of esoteric aspects of New York, maybe even Mexico City in antiquity. We haven't had magical cities. Cities evolved to developmental layers after Magenta. And so there is something around like, yeah, magic happens in the village. Magic might happen in the town when you start getting these cultures of green who are now engaging in magic, but are very much more attached to their urbanism. You get some perverse shit. Every single one of those towns, Taos, Sedona, Beacon, like I've been to all of them because I had my camper van. I was like, this kind of rules. Like there's always like a tedium that comes from hippies getting too into anything, but there's this weird groundedness. I mean, I think Magenta provides a groundedness. It provides a animatedness to the environment in a way where Portland sometimes just feels like you just made Times Square's crunchy. You just made an infinite fractaled farmer's market, but it's just as perverse as Times Square. It's just the object surface level seems magical, seems softer, seems. Whereas I do feel whatever the morphogenic field of those towns, like, yeah, tourists make it worse, but the people who like stick around and are like, no, this land, and you do see a lot of white people getting into land back movements, but for good in the sense of no, like there's a ley line here. There is good chi. The feng shui is like the waters here are good. And so at this bottom up level, like these towns will always keep popping up because there will always be auspicious places. And then there's always going to be this human desire to, how do I put a well here? How do I capture it? How do I do the thing? And at least in our commodification of aesthetic right now, we end up getting these weird crystal turquoise tourist towns that may have actual deep spiritual magic things underneath. And I've observed them having. But in that esoteric tradition, you got to stick around for more than one season. You got to look 4 to 5 levels deep, and you got to like cohere to the mystery, which for a lot of magical posers, ooh, it's the last thing they want to fucking do. They want to vape it. They want magic that can be Pokemoned out. And I love Pokemon, but I'm just like, no. Everything I've learned about this shit is it sucks, it's crazy, and there's a reason why wizards are all old bearded people.
Yeah, I tell you what, like I mentioned, I think, I really do feel like I explored red. I didn't notice it till the end,
Mm,
but I do think my interest was in red part of the spiral. And then now, like I said, like maybe the last year or so, it's been shifting, and it's clearly now for me, I'm much more interested in magenta.
mm,
And I don't anticipate it being a short. You're mentioning the hard part of it. I get, really.
ugh.
But at least for me, I am not ready to admit, even like I know for sure it's not going to be short. It's going to take time, and yeah, it's hard.
I mean, the
Like,
crazy thing about Magenta, this is a yes and, is I think every level has a different measure of time. And the Magenta time gets real crazy. I've got the joke is that a lot of my Magenta interest just comes around the fact that like I keep dating witches. Keep dating witches. There's so many. I'm a wizardly guy. I'm not really like if I were to go magic with it, I'm like, nah, it's still pretty like amber orange, natural philosopher eating lead and yeah, like, it's still very, very like masculine wizardly. But I keep falling for these witches and what I will start observing is I will be hanging out with my sweeties and I'll like have a little ritual. I'll like check my watch and I'll go in and we're having this amazing time and I'll lose concept of time and I'll try and remember to look at it. And this is a metaphor, but it's how it feels. I'll just see the faces of the watch just moving crazy. I'm like, oh shit, I'm in witch time. I'm not, this doesn't do shit for me anymore. And then I'll leave and find myself having to like compose myself again and I'll start seeing the clock working where I'll be like, oh shit, for a time I went to the woods and I hung out the witches and time stopped making sense and it became a measure of ritual space and what's the next moment and what's the next attunement. Like just time itself became different. And so it's funny to just hear that say that because it's like, yeah, not only is it going to take a long time by a lot of our higher level measurements, it's going to take a long time as it is still taking that time. Like you don't want to get dramatic about it, but there's a degree to which our current human society, which we're like, this is so fucking great, is just like, oh, monkey got two hats on top of his head. That's cool. Like we're still playing Mother Nature's game. We are have added some very interesting filigree to it, but like we have not gotten so developed that that game doesn't matter, and it just feels like every time someone reaches an apex moment, they immediately want to go back to the woods. It's like, yeah, that's the game we've been playing. We've never once left it. It has been an ego's illusion that somehow we picked up language and made Shakespeare and invented Froyo, and now we don't have this shit to deal with anymore.
uh, I'm actually sort of curious. I actually wonder now that you said that. I wonder if you feel like, because what I'm picturing is, even if it was the same as red, let's just say it was a 7 year study, and if I'm, is there another side? Like, can you make it through? Can you crack into infrared in a way that the biohackers aren't doing, where they're talking about, you know, they're just using science. They're using like outer measurement to say like, oh, you shouldn't eat for this part of the day. You should, exercise this much. You should do it this time. The rhythms. There's a lot of orange version of like the infrared biohacking type of stuff. But what would it be like to really explore it like you're exploring Magenta?
So I have to ask a question before I answer that question because this is my North Star, which is and I've become very Campbellian, Joseph Campbell in my days. I'm just like, is it blissful? Is it me following my bliss? If my bliss has me stay in Magenta forever, then I'm like, I couldn't tell you. I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
my bliss necessitates that I have to go through there for a very weird 3 year period where I have to get a shamanistic initiation, then I'll be like, okay, I guess that'll happen. Like that's the weird, I think, truth of magenta green, and then by extension teal is those questions still presuppose some sort of utility of getting through it. Like I like how you asked the question, which is how did you get there? I'm like, it wasn't a utility thing. It was just I'm someone who likes finding the holes, and I found a hole in reality, and it dropped me straight to magenta. But that there is something about like when you play. Ooh, I'm gonna get shamanistic with this because why not? We're talking about magenta. I have heron energy. I'm very opportunistic. It's very irritating. As a human being, people sometimes don't like that. They like the pretty bird, they like its ability to find fish. There's a utility to the heron as a measure of the health of the ecosystem. It's dope. They don't like the aspect of just like, it's going to be gone for a while and then all of a sudden, pop up. But there's something called, Jung talks about in the Red Book called living your animal. And so when I live my heron animal, it's just like, yeah, time is measured between dives to grab a fish. Like that is what time is for me, and it's very individualistic. If I meet other herons, dope, but herons also don't, they're not that social. Like there is certain spaces and certain times, but they're not that social. So there is also that weirdness of like the degree to which humans are social happens above the game that happens at Magenta, where humans start being social with other animals, and then humans start being social with ourselves exclusively, and sometimes dogs. And there's something in the interplay there that makes the question like not useless, but immediately I go, is the bee asking me this? Like who's asking the question of how do we get through? Is the beaver asking me this because we're
It's
making a like
no, it's probably my own interest in touching on to the physical aspect of
Mm,
reality more than this it's an additional interest of mine, maybe even deeper for me. And so
mm, mm.
maybe I pose it that way in my and so what is it about my interest in magenta? But it does seem I really do feel like I've gotten here and it is very, very interesting, to say the least. Yeah.
It's real. The word that keeps being thrown around is it's rewilded. There's a wildness down there. It's the place where the existential dread isn't a catastrophe in the same way. Like it's just like, yeah, it's me. Maybe this sharp stick, the concept that maybe there's a nature deity that gives a shit about me, and the forest. And if that's a crisis every single minute of every day in the way that we perceive crisis, you die. You die from cortisol poisoning. But whatever humans were doing, vaguely aware of that, playing that game then, I at least feel like for me, there's a lesson. I see so many people being like, I'm so lost, I don't know what to do. I'm like, well, what would you do if you were lost in the forest? And they look at me, they're like, I'm never lost in the forest. I come there with gear and a plan and I da 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 da. And immediately I'm like, I think someone should get you lost in the forest. I was like, that's crazy. That's Yoda shit. That's V for Vendetta nonsense. I should not do that. Which is why I play D&D. That's the only place where I'm allowed to be like, I'm going to trap my friends in a situation with little information where there is a god, i.e., me, that's purposefully fucking with them for the plot. Hopefully transformation, but like at the end of the day, like that has also been part of my reason of getting into Magenta is that like it makes me a better dungeon master. Like the lessons of Magenta and leadership and how do you shape humans towards a coherent goal comes from the magical thinking of Magenta. And one of the things that I've really enjoyed about D&D that I've been kind of struggling to bring into real life, but have had some benefits is, well, shit, D&D has magic. At the end of the day, Avatar: Last Airbender has magic. Even, and so somehow it's the magic system itself that is holding those worlds together, Brandon Sanderson. Oh, they have magic. And I like a magic system because magic's fun, but it's starting to get like anthropological where I'm like, hold on. The thing like I keep repeating about why D&D works, why fantasy system works, why Star Wars works is they got magic. And I look at our world and I go, huh, is that what's missing? Are we missing a coherent thing? And the closest thing that I've been able to get at, this is the whole loop, this is the bow tied, is emotions are magic. I don't know what the fuck they are, but when I look at narratives around like, oh, why aren't men allowed to practice magic in the Wheel of Time and Dune? It's like men aren't emotionally intelligent to deal with the like somaticized power that comes from like connecting to all that is. They go insane and become evil tyrants. And I was like, oh, does that have to happen? No, but it is pointing to something that I have witnessed in our world as an emotional reality truth. Oh, what happens if you get too angry in Star Wars? Oh, you turn evil and you try to take over the world. And it's like, well, are there exceptions to that? Well, Mace Windu, who is a master of Vapod, which actually says alchemize the dark side into being a better light side fighter, was the only one who could defeat Palpatine. It's like, interesting. So actually, there's a coherent thing in this magical system that actually responds to a relationship to anger that not only have I seen, but I've experienced. Like I wrote my first book, Alchemizing Anger into Joy. I was like, yeah, I can crack joke. Like I can get as angry as I want because the output, almost like a tree, is I take in my anger and I breathe out yucks. Like that's safe. For other people, they're like, the most timid person you ever met is worried that their anger is gonna make them kill somebody. I'm like, you're 5'0". This worry is nothing, but it has become so vilified in that Star Warsian dark side narrative. Like the fact that we keep replicating these cultural scripts around how magic works and that they keep being emotional realities of it, um, yeah, has kept me exploring it, and it's been very interesting.
All right. So you mentioned the D&D briefly. I want to take a moment to talk about you. Uh,
Mhm.
a little bit more, yeah. You as maybe a little on the little more professional side, to a degree. And then wrap it up. I'd like to actually like discuss as we end the idea of what does magic, what do you surmise magic has, what's place does magic have in teal, emerging teal,
Hmm.
um, and because typically what happened when we got into integral theory, there was a lot of just amber, orange, green. Just a lot of work is that, and like you said, when you introduce it to somebody, you talk about the full spectrum. You dip into red at least to get it started, and then you move to the three, um, you know, stages that are more what the culture is going
They're
to.
alive. The culture war is still occurring, so you can be like, oh look, that's there. It's recognizable in our world.
And people are seeking out magenta spaces. They go to like you say, a shaman in South America, or they do ayahuasca, or all these little things. But how could it be an actual integrated part of an emergent teal? So that's the question. But before we get into that, and I let you answer, I want to at least give people the way that you would like your social or whatever like that. How you might want to get contacted. I'll put it in the description if you'd like to share those
It's
things.
good. It's
And then
reasonable. This is what
what
I'm
projects?
supposed to do on podcasts.
Yeah, but it's not so much an orange selling of that, but there might be people if you've made it this far, they're actually probably really interested, and it would be really helpful if they would like to.
No, I not only do I know this is good. This is why I was excited to do this. I got to get back on podcasts. I got to be podcasting again. It's a good thing. This is baby steps. I'm here for it. I have identified in my magentaness the archetype that is very alive for me right now that I'm also trying to get over because money can be used to buy goods and service. Old man at the edge of the forest. Old man at the edge of the forest says, "You want to go in that forest? You got a sword? Do you have offerings for the goddess? Are you here because you're trying to escape reality? It's just gonna find you back at like." So there's a part of me that's just like putting up a billboard seems crazy. Like if you got to go to the forest, you'll find the damn forest. But also, this might be the way they find the damn forest. Anyway, that's just me being over it. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Wendell_Britt. Wendell with two L's, Britt with two T's.
are there any projects you're doing professionally? Like I know you, and you can mention ones you've done, like the D&D stuff, super interesting. And we could talk for hours on the projects you've done.
Oh yeah, well, yeah, yes. I've been working on a game system simultaneously, like a game system for making the world a better place, the mastering the game of life, mastering the game of allyship, etc., etc. Still trucking away at this book that has turned into a game that's turned back into a book. It's a whole thing. It's very chimeric. We love. But most specifically, the part of the that has been giving me a lot of life is this thing called emotional alchemy that I have developed, which is the fuel for a story engine. Hypothetically, you got a life, you want to make something of it for whatever reason, you will need a vehicle to get there. I always say if I want to go from New York to LA, I got to pass through Wichita. If I don't pass through Wichita, it means I've had to go the long way around because there's some shadow material I can't deal with passing through Wichita, which is funny for me because I'm from Wichita. And so you need a vehicle to get there. Regardless of dealing with the shadow of it all, you are going to have to walk a really long while. You're going to have to bike. You're going to have to get on a train. You get on a car. Either way, and you get to ask questions around like, well, if I'm on a train, I'm on someone else's vehicle that I paid admission for. If I'm on a car, it's something that I bought. Did I design my own car? Like, there's once you get into the engineering of self, like very practical engineering questions emerge. And what I found is that if the vehicle is story, which it is, that's all we're doing anything for is to have stories told about us, either to ourselves or otherwise. I want to tell the story of me from New York to LA. The fuel that runs the story engine is the emotions. And so you suddenly become you have the opportunity to become like a field biologist for your emotional landscape and get to ask the hard questions, settlers of Catan style. What is it that I have in abundance that I can use to fuel this vehicle? And is this a, we'll call it sustainable or unsustainable emotion? In my frame, it's either satisfying or unsatisfying. Big lesson that I learned is most people are fueling their lives based on dissatisfaction, which is crazy. And then there are people who are building life on satisfaction. Satisfaction might be a sustainable energy, like solar, like the like I don't know, hydrology, geothermal, what have you. If you build your story on dissatisfaction, by the time you get to LA, you'll be like, why am I so upset? And then you maybe try and go to Seattle, and then maybe you'll try to go to Vancouver, and you'll be confused why you're so upset. Meanwhile, you've been shoveling coal in your vehicle the whole time, not asking, is there is it the smog that's making me upset versus having a sustainable fuel? And so a lot of the work has been like, okay, what does it mean to transmute an emotional state from a dissatisfaction state to a satisfaction state? What does it mean to Settlers of Catan make a 2-for-1 port from like again for me it's anger to joy. Like I can do anger to joy all day. I'm working on anxiety and fear to Pete. Like there are these moves that can possibly be made. How do you befriend the source of your emotions? Suddenly, when you start introducing Big Mind, you can ask anger, like, when did you get here? Who installed you? Why is our field filled with coal? And can we turn back the clock on whatever reality that we have to either use it all up or do something else with it. And so that's a very Magenta mythopoetic way of engaging with self. I think that's why we get here is that suddenly these questions aren't abstract, they're not scientific, they're not even psychological, they become mythological. They become, hey, I gotta get this fuel somewhere, I gotta get this fuel with me. If I am an angry person and addicted to dissatisfaction, I'm gonna actually need to run around and find every atrocity I can on the way from New York to LA to get there so I can re-up my my pissed off meter so I can have enough fucking fuel to get where I need to go. Which the same thing will happen as if I'm a depressive type. I will need to find all this sort of sad things in the world to get me from point A to point B and hope that the ecology of that world obliges so that my path can be as straight as possible and then I don't have to do all of this crazy shit. And that's yeah, that's given me a lot of life. It's been very interesting because the one thing that seems to exist across most of the levels that we've talked about is emotion. Like the emotional line does happen at Magenta. It happens at all the levels that we talk about. Even in when Orange tries to pretend not, I'm like, Yeah, but how will you feel if number don't go up? Angry. I'm like, okay, cool. You probably just flattened all of this into anger and fear, which when I look at our nerdy billionaires and all their decisions, I'm just like, I think you guys might build some different things if you were sad. I'm not even saying they would be good things. They might also be terror nexuses, but it is very obvious that none of these people are using sadness or peace to fuel their ambitions.
Oh, look at Sora, the predominant like silliness of Sora, like yeah, where they allow like shit on people's faces, but like you can say shit all day, but you can't create anything sexual.
Yep, yep, yep.
Yeah. Is your alchemy of emotions, is that a course people can sign up for? Is it a coaching system? Is it a game they can purchase? Is it a book they can read? Is it
Man.
a rock they can throw?
At its current state, it is maybe you'll get a vibe of this. Like it is an internal tool that I'm using to build other tools. So like if you find yourself working with me, you will not be able to avoid emotional alchemy in the same way that if you go to Yoda, he's gonna make you lift rocks, but Yoda didn't invent the Force, and you can't. It's closer to that. Like it really is emerging as sort of like a martial art. So it's like there is a packaging function that I have to do that I'm quite irritated about, but yeah, it will probably have future life in somewhere like Master of the Game of Allyship, the book. Like the reason why this is so alive right now is that I've gotten to the part of that book where I was like, oh, this is where emotional alchemy is key because I don't want to have to deal with the fact that people are going to bring dumb, dissatisfied emotions to helping people and make perverse games about it. That's why I didn't want to finish the stupid books. I'm like, I don't want to help these people be perverts about this. So now it needs
Wendell, if
emotional alchemy so people can actually be satisfied in their learnings.
if the world was more teal, your gamification of allyship uh would have made you'd be in a different income bracket.
Yeah, well, oh, that just makes me sad. It's true, but also it's
Well,
true, and that's also the great gift is that I'm like I do tell myself I'm like I am correct. This is the approach. The fact that it's emerging these very powerful, amazing social spiritual tools. The fact that it's mostly built out of like I'm very excited to be an old man one day and be like I built mastering allyship out of big mind and 3 2 1s. Basically, I tried to convince myself it was other than that, but it was just bubblegum and psycho spiritual bubblegum and popsicle sticks. Like the ways in which I have not been able to leave those structures, which I would say are inherently teal structures. And maybe that's the question. I think that's maybe, ooh, yeah, that feels right. I don't have time to go into it as much as I want. Teal objects, teal hyper objects, I think are the thing that teal has to offer more than teal people.
you
Teal
say
people
more.
don't scale particularly well. Teal hyperobjects do. What do I mean by teal hyperobject? Like the game system I'm making, not just the big one, but I'm literally making a Avatar: The Last Airbender style 5 element bender society, but using the Taoist whooshing, using the emotions as like, no, your emotions is the magic. Like I am building that game. The stories that that game tells, being integrally informed, being in such a way, it is impossible for people to not, in the same way that like you might get poisoned by the smog, there's no way that you could not get the benefits from just the fact that like these moves were all emergent moves that came out of 1,000 3 2 1s that I've done. All these moves are emergent moves that have come out of alchemy. Like everything in the world itself is suffused by air quotes the morphogenics of teal, which may scale faster than dialogue about it. And I do think that is the magic of Magenta, where it's like, you don't even have to believe in the rain dance for the magic to work. You just got to show up and do the ritual.
Take it till you make it. Yeah.
Except I push,
Well,
I
yeah.
hear it, that's, and it's so there, and I know that that's digestible, but just for the listeners, that is a very orange approach. It is be it until you be it, is the, I'd say, the more accurate version.
Yeah, I was throwing in like a personal like reference meant for an audience of me. So yeah,
I know, and that's why I
yeah,
jumped on it because I don't think like a true embodied magenta person does not feel they're faking it in the same way that when I play D&D right, and someone has
Now,
locked into their character, they're in it.
now I would say so. Two things I would say. One is I think it's yes, I think it's awesome. I mean, I think it's amazing that you are making a system, so to speak, technology, a teal technology that is going to be more effective than interpersonal one-on-one dialogue or even one-to-many personal dialogue, as I do, like say I do a 10-minute clip on a topic. I mean, YouTube is I'm already I'm just of the YouTube generation to a degree, and I'm not ready to move on to TikTok, and I'll take my 20 people or whatever, you know. But it's got to go beyond that to actually like make it. And it sounds like I would highly recommend anybody who's interested to fuck with Wendell and get in, like connect and go on a little bit of this journey if it's so calls you. Um,
This is a mid teal, high teal thing. So there's always that dance where it's like, well, are we at turquoise or are we at teal? I think being at turquoise with no turquoise community is crazy. I think it's possible to be done, but it's so dangerous that I wouldn't want anyone to go there because it's like
it's more of
stranding
an
it's
interpersonal.
stranding someone on a desert island in a way where like teal has hopefully in its I think its mid stage has learned how to mask effectively. Like teal knows how to hang out with red, how to hang out with green, how to hang out with amp. And it happens all the time. People get pissed at me because they'll see me do it. They'll see me shift and be like, "Oh, this motherfucker's fake." And I'm like, "No, these are all different languages and you can't speak them. And I'm sorry, but like I do have a different personality at each different level because that is what is appropriate for each level." I think high teal, let's say you're doing your 3 2 1s, you're doing a lot of big mind, you start encountering the true reality that like all the pieces that you're pissed out about out there are in here and they all have different heights and that the place that makes you go to Magenta is just the fact that for whatever reason, taking as object your inner world, the inner culture, the inner anthropology, the inner history, that which triggers the emotions seems to be something pre-rational. Like I don't necessarily get angry if a rock is thrown at my head. I may have an angry reaction because I need the anger energy to defend myself, but nothing about rock hitting my head is anger inducing, except for the fact that we've had this story about David and Goliath getting hit with the rock on his head. And if I am getting hit with the rock on my head, then someone else might think I'm Goliath. Like there's a weird meaning layer that makes emotions happen. And all those meaning layers are story. And so it's this very interesting self-authorship without recognizing that we like basically all just emerged from a weird mycelial fungus at Magenta is simultaneously like relieving because it's just like at the bottom it is just nonsense. It is magical nonsense. But ecologically there's a very specific flavor of magical nonsense that produce your entire ego structure. And even if that doesn't exist outside of you, there is a way of honoring that that's going to essentially make you look like an animist to yourself. Yeah.